Why do most wives feel completely invisible, even when they're doing everything right? Why does she feel so alone, even when she's surrounded by her family all day long? Why does she feel like she's drowning, even though from the outside, her life looks absolutely perfect? If you've ever asked yourself these questions, or if you've ever wondered why the woman in your life seems distant, even though nothing obvious has changed, stay with me, because what I'm about to share will explain everything. There's a woman you might know. Maybe she's your wife. Maybe she's your mother. Maybe she's your sister. Maybe she's you. Every morning, she wakes up before everyone else. Before the sun fully rises, before the house stirs with life, she moves quietly through the kitchen, making breakfast nobody asked for, but everyone expects. She smiles, even when exhaustion weighs heavy on her shoulders. She forgives things that were never apologized for. She packs lunches with the crusts cut off just the way they like. She signs permission slips she barely had time to read. She remembers doctor's appointments, birthday parties, and that her husband has an important meeting today. She irons his shirt. She sets out the kids' clothes. She does all of this while running on 4 hours of sleep. This is her every morning. This is her life every single day. And here's what nobody tells you. Here's the truth that lives in the silence between all those tasks. She's not just managing a household. She's carrying the emotional weight of everyone's entire existence, everyone's needs, everyone's problems, everyone's feelings, except her own. If you're a woman watching this right now, I need you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share might make you cry. It might make you feel angry. It might crack something open inside you that you've been holding shut for years, but it might also make you feel truly seen for the first time in a very long time. And if you're a man watching this, please don't click away. I know this might be uncomfortable, but what you're about to hear could genuinely save your marriage, because the woman you love is drowning right in front of you, and you might not even see the water rising around her. This isn't about blame. This isn't about pointing fingers or creating division. This is about understanding. This is about the psychology that nobody talks about openly, and this is about why so many good marriages are quietly falling apart without anyone even noticing until it's too late. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand what's really happening beneath the surface. And more importantly, you'll know what you can actually do about it. Here's what millions of women across America are experiencing right now in this very moment. And most of them have never told anyone about it. She sits in her car in the driveway after everyone's gone to sleep. Just 15 minutes of silence. No music, no phone, just breathing. It's the only time all day she feels like herself. Or she locks the bathroom door and sits on the floor. Not because she needs to use it, but because it's the only room with a lock, the only place where no one can ask her for something. Or she wakes up at 5 in the morning. Not because she has to, but because those quiet moments before everyone else wakes up are the only time that belongs to her. These aren't isolated incidents. These aren't rare stories. According to research from the American Psychological Association, 68% of married women in America report feeling emotionally exhausted by the invisible labor of managing their households and families. But here's what most people don't understand. It's not really about the dishes or the laundry or the meal planning or the scheduling. It's about being the emotional center of gravity for every single person in the family, while slowly, quietly losing her own center, while forgetting what her own gravity even feels like. Think about the typical American household. Every morning, she wakes up and transforms into different versions of herself. She becomes mom. She becomes wife. She becomes the organizer, the peacekeeper, the problem solver, the cheerleader, the emotional support system, the family therapist. She remembers everyone's schedules down to the minute. She knows everyone's preferences, everyone's quirks, everyone's emotional triggers. She knows that one child doesn't like crusts on sandwiches. She knows another child needs extra reassurance before tests. She knows her husband gets quiet when work becomes stressful and needs space, but not too much space. She manages all of this complex emotional choreography while also managing her own career, her own stress levels, her own body that might be dealing with hormonal changes or chronic fatigue or pain that she rarely mentions because everyone else already has their own problems. And here's what the psychology research shows us so clearly. This isn't just exhausting. This is what researchers call identity erosion. Women across America are slowly losing themselves, piece by piece, day by day. Dr. Sunia Luther from Arizona State University has extensively studied this phenomenon in American families. She identified what's called role overload, where the demands of multiple roles exceed a person's capacity to meet them all adequately. But it goes so much deeper than simply having too much to do. It's about slowly forgetting who you actually are underneath all those roles and responsibilities. It's about losing touch with your own desires, your own dreams, your own sense of self that exists independently of everyone else. When was the last time someone genuinely asked these women, "What do you want?" Not what does the family need, not what would be best for everyone else, not what makes sense logistically, but what do you personally want? What does your heart want? Most women across America can't even answer that question anymore. And that's not because they're being difficult or mysterious. It's because they've spent so many years, sometimes decades, putting everyone else first, that they've genuinely forgotten they're allowed to have wants at all. They've forgotten that their desires actually matter. Many women used to have hobbies. They used to paint or read novels that had nothing to do with parenting advice, or play instruments, or have book clubs with friends. They used to have interests and passions that were completely their own. Now they can't remember the last time they did something purely because they wanted to do it. And when the thought occasionally crosses their mind, maybe I could take that art class, or maybe I could meet up with my old friends for coffee, guilt immediately floods in and drowns out the desire. Who would make dinner if they're gone? Who would help with homework? What if something important comes up and they're not available? What if someone needs them and they're not there? So they stay. They give. They sacrifice. They pour themselves out for everyone else. And they tell themselves, it's fine. This is what mothers do. This is what wives do. This is what good women are supposed to do. But here's the psychological truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Slow self-erasure isn't noble. It isn't virtuous. It's tragic. Now, let's talk about something that has a clinical name, but rarely gets the acknowledgement and attention it deserves. Emotional labor. The sociologist Arlie Hochschild first coined this term back in 1983, but it's only been in recent years that we've really started to understand its profound impact on women, particularly in marriages and long-term partnerships. Emotional labor isn't just about managing your own feelings. It's the invisible work of managing relationships, anticipating everyone's needs before they even express them, maintaining all the social connections for the entire family, and keeping the emotional temperature of the household stable and comfortable for everyone else. Let me give you a concrete example of what this actually looks like in households across America every single day. It's Thursday afternoon. A wife suddenly remembers that her husband's mother's birthday is coming up on Saturday. So, without anyone asking her or reminding her, she handles everything. She drives to the store and picks out the perfect card. She makes sure the children sign the card with sweet messages. She orders a thoughtful gift online and has it shipped express. She figures out what time they should visit to fit everyone's schedule. She thinks about what food to bring or what meal to prepare. She coordinates all the timing and logistics. She reminds her husband multiple times about the visit. Saturday arrives. He shows up at his mother's house, gives her a warm hug and a kiss, hands her the gift and card, and everyone thanks him for being such a thoughtful son. Everyone appreciates him for remembering his own mother's birthday. But he didn't remember. She remembered. She managed every single detail. She carried the entire mental and emotional load, and nobody even noticed. It was completely invisible. This exact pattern happens with doctor's appointments, dentist checkups, school events and conferences, social obligations and gatherings, gift giving for every birthday and holiday, and teacher appreciation event, remembering the dietary restrictions of dinner guests, knowing which child needs which permission form signed by when, tracking everyone's emotional states throughout the day, and adjusting your own behavior accordingly. Research published in the Journal of Family Psychology in 2019 found that women perform approximately 10 more hours per week of this invisible labor compared to their male partners, even when both people work full-time jobs outside the home. But here's what makes this psychological burden so incredibly heavy for American women. It's not just the physical doing of tasks, it's the constant mental load of remembering, planning ahead, and anticipating what's coming next. Their brains literally never shut off. They're sitting at work, trying to focus on a project, and they're simultaneously thinking about what to make for dinner. They're sitting at the dinner table, and they're already thinking about tomorrow morning's school project. They're lying in bed trying to fall asleep, and they're running through the complete mental checklist of everything that needs to happen tomorrow. Psychologists call this cognitive load, and for women who are carrying the mental burden of managing their entire household and family, it's like running a marathon that never ends. There's no finish line, there's no rest day, it just continues forever. And the exhaustion isn't just physical tiredness, it becomes existential exhaustion. It seeps into every part of life. Because here's what happens slowly, over months and years, to women across America. They start to disappear. Not literally, of course. They're still physically there, still doing everything, still managing everything, but the person they used to be. The woman with her own dreams and desires, and personality, and sense of self that existed independently of her roles. That person quietly fades away. Women look at themselves in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back anymore, not because their physical body has changed, though that narrative exists too, but because they genuinely can't remember the last time they felt like a complete person, rather than just a collection of functions and services for other people. And this is where the psychology becomes really painful to examine. These women start to believe deep in their hearts that this is just how it has to be. This is what being a wife and mother means. This is the necessary trade-off for having a family. This is the price women pay. But here's what the actual research tells us. This trade-off is neither inevitable nor healthy for anyone involved. Studies on marital satisfaction consistently show that relationships truly thrive when both partners feel genuinely seen, authentically valued, and actively supported as complete individuals, not just as people filling necessary roles. When women lose themselves completely in service to everyone else, marital satisfaction plummets dramatically for both partners. Because here's something important to remember. Husbands originally fell in love with their wives as complete people, not with their ability to manage complex logistics, not with their skills as household operations managers. They fell in love with their laugh, their unique opinions, their quirks and imperfections, their dreams and ambitions, their complete and whole selves. And those selves are slowly disappearing under the crushing weight of invisible labor. Now, let's talk honestly about what happens in marriages across America when this pattern continues for years and years. Wives start to feel resentful. They don't want to feel this way. They actively try to push it down and ignore it. They feel guilty for feeling resentful when they have so much to be grateful for. But the resentment is still there, growing quietly because they're utterly exhausted and they're profoundly lonely. Yes, lonely, even though they're literally surrounded by people demanding their attention all day long. Here's the paradox that's so hard to explain. These women can be drowning in constant connection with everyone else while being completely disconnected from their own inner world and from their partners. They're hyper-connected to their children's needs and emotions. They're connected to work demands. They're connected to every social obligation, but they're not connected to their own inner selves anymore. They don't even know what they're feeling half the time. And increasingly, they feel miles away from their husbands, even when they're in the same room. Not because couples don't love each other anymore, but because somewhere along the long journey, they stopped really seeing each other as complete human beings. The renowned relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman discovered through decades of studying thousands of American couples that successful marriages aren't actually built on grand, romantic gestures or even on being conflict-free. They're built on what he calls turning toward moments. These are small, everyday instances where partners acknowledge each other's bids for emotional connection. But here's what's actually happening in marriages across America every single day. A wife makes a bid for connection. She says, "I'm so tired today." He responds, "Yeah, me too. Work was absolutely crazy today." On the surface, that exchange seems perfectly fine and supportive. But what he didn't hear, what he completely missed, was the real message underneath her words. "I need you to truly see me right now. I need you to ask me why I'm so tired. I need you to care about my specific tiredness, not just relate it back to your own experience and move on." She makes another bid. She says, "I don't even remember the last time I did something just for myself." He responds supportively, "You should totally do something for yourself. Take a day off, or go do whatever you want." Again, on the surface, this seems helpful and encouraging, but what she desperately needed to hear was something completely different. "Tell me more about that feeling. What would you want to do if you had time? How can I actively create space for that to happen? I see that you're struggling, and I genuinely want to help in a real way." These tiny micro disconnections happen hundreds of times every week, and slowly, gradually, she stops making bids for connection at all. She stops trying to be seen because it hurts less to not try than to try and feel invisible anyway. And here's the core psychology that men often genuinely don't understand. Women don't always need solutions to be fixed. They need emotional validation and acknowledgement. When she says she's exhausted, she's not asking him to solve her exhaustion or fix the problem. She's asking him to witness it, to acknowledge it, to sit with her in that difficult feeling for just a moment. But men are typically socialized from boyhood to be problem solvers and fixers. So, when she shares a vulnerable feeling, he immediately jumps into fix-it mode, and she ends up feeling even more alone than before because he's trying to fix the surface problem without understanding that she is not a problem to be fixed. She's a human being who desperately needs to be seen and heard. Dr. Sue Johnson, who founded Emotionally Focused Therapy, explains that at the absolute core of all relationship struggles is one desperate question that people are asking. Are you there for me? Can I truly count on you? Do I actually matter to you? And for so many women in marriages right now, the answer they're receiving, whether spoken directly or communicated through actions and inaction, feels like no. Not because their husbands don't care about them, not because their husbands are bad men, but because the care and love isn't being expressed in a way that actually reaches her heart and meets her needs. She needs him to notice when she's completely overwhelmed without her having to announce it explicitly or ask for help. She needs him to take real initiative with the children, with the household tasks, with the planning and mental labor, not because she created a list and assigned tasks, but because he sees what needs to be done and does it. She needs him to ask her about her inner world, her thoughts and feelings and dreams, not just about logistics and schedules and what's for dinner. She needs to feel like she matters as a complete human being, not just as someone who performs necessary functions in his life. And when those fundamental needs go completely unmet for years, something inside her starts to quietly shut down. This is the part that's hardest to talk about honestly, because this is where marriages start to quietly die, without anyone outside the relationship even noticing. She doesn't leave dramatically. She doesn't have an affair. She doesn't explode in rage, at least not usually. Instead, she does something far more subtle and ultimately far more devastating to the relationship. She emotionally withdraws. She stops asking him about his day with genuine curiosity and interest. She stops sharing her real feelings with him. She stops initiating intimacy. And I don't just mean physical intimacy, I mean emotional intimacy. Vulnerable conversations, deep connection. She becomes efficient, practical, purely functional. The marriage continues on its established path. Bills still get paid on time. Children still get raised and cared for. Daily life continues happening. But the real connection, the deep soulful connection that originally made them fall in love and choose each other, is completely gone. And here's what makes this particularly tragic. He might not even notice at first that anything has fundamentally changed, because on the surface, everything still looks fine and functional. She's still doing all the tasks and responsibilities. The household still runs smoothly. Life still happens on schedule. But she's not really there anymore. Not emotionally. Not in any way that matters. She's going through all the motions perfectly. But her heart has quietly checked out of the relationship. Psychologists have a term for this. They call it emotional disengagement, and research shows clearly that it's actually one of the strongest predictors of eventual divorce. Not loud conflict, not screaming arguments, but this quiet, slow, progressive, emotional disconnection. Dr. Terry Orbuch led a study that followed thousands of married couples for multiple decades. She found that feeling chronically unappreciated was one of the very top reasons women cited for marital unhappiness and eventual divorce, not abuse. Not infidelity or affairs, just the accumulated weight of feeling unseen, unappreciated, taken for granted, year after year. And here's what makes this so deeply painful to witness. She actually tried to tell him, maybe not in direct, clear words that he could easily understand, maybe not in ways that made sense to him, but she tried. She said things like, "I feel like I'm doing absolutely everything alone. I'm so tired all the time, and I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I don't even know who I am anymore. Outside of being everyone's caretaker, we never just talk anymore like we used to." And maybe he heard the words, but maybe he didn't understand the profound depth of what she was actually trying to communicate. Maybe he thought she was just venting temporary frustration. Maybe he offered a quick solution. Maybe he got defensive and made it about himself. And so, eventually she stopped trying altogether, because trying and being misunderstood hurt more than silence. Here's something I need you to understand clearly. It's not too late. If you're watching this right now, and you recognize yourself in this story, whether you're the woman who's been slowly disappearing, or the man who's been unintentionally missing all the signs, it's not too late to change the trajectory. But reconnection requires something that's actually harder than grand romantic gestures or dramatic life changes. It requires consistent, intentional, everyday presence and attention. If you're the woman in this story, you have to start reclaiming your voice. Not hints, not subtle comments, not passive-aggressive statements. Direct, clear, honest communication about your real needs. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," when you're absolutely not fine, say, "I'm not fine right now. I'm completely overwhelmed, and I genuinely need help." Instead of saying you never help around the house, say, "I need you to take full responsibility for the children's bedtime routine tonight. I need 1 full hour completely to myself." Research shows clearly that direct requests consistently get much better responses than indirect complaints or hints. Your partner cannot read your mind, and you deserve to have your needs clearly stated and actually met. Start reconnecting with yourself. Start small if you need to, even 15 minutes a day, doing something purely for yourself, something that reminds you of who you are beyond all your roles and responsibilities. Read 1 chapter of a book that has nothing to do with parenting. Take a walk alone without your phone. Listen to music that genuinely moves your soul. Journal your real thoughts. Create something. Rest without drowning in guilt. This isn't selfish behavior. This is basic survival. You cannot possibly pour from a completely empty cup, and you cannot be truly present for your family if you've completely disappeared from yourself. And please, let go of the suffocating need for perfection. The house doesn't need to be perfectly clean. The meals don't need to look like something from a cooking show. Your children don't need to be enrolled in every possible activity. Give yourself permission to be beautifully imperfect. Give yourself permission to need help without shame. Give yourself permission to prioritize your own well-being without crushing guilt. If you're the man watching this, start by truly noticing what's actually happening around you. Look around your home and your life with fresh eyes. Really look. What is she managing every single day that you've never even thought about? What invisible weight is she carrying? Notice when she's tired. Notice when she's overwhelmed. Notice when she's just going through the motions, but isn't really present anymore. And then, and this is absolutely crucial, do something meaningful about it without being asked or assigned a task. Take real initiative. Don't wait for a detailed task list. If you see dishes in the sink, wash them. If you see she's overwhelmed, Take the children outside for 2 hours. If you see she hasn't had any time to herself, create that space for her proactively. Ask better questions. Stop asking what's for dinner, or did you handle that thing? Start asking, how are you really doing today? What's weighing heavily on your heart right now? What do you need from me in this moment? What would make you feel truly loved and seen today? And when she answers honestly, don't immediately try to fix it. Don't dismiss her feelings. Don't relate it back to your own experience and make it about you. Just listen with your full attention. Really listen. Let her feel genuinely heard and validated. Show up emotionally, not just physically. Physical presence in the same house isn't nearly enough. You can be in the same room and be miles apart emotionally. Put down your phone, turn off the television, make real eye contact, touch her shoulder gently, hold her hand, ask about her inner emotional world. Not just her schedule and to-do list. Tell her specifically what you appreciate about her, not just what she does for you, but who she actually is as a person. I love how deeply you care about people. I admire your incredible strength. I appreciate how you make our house feel like a real home. These aren't empty compliments. They're genuine acknowledgments of her full humanity beyond her function in your life. Here's what I desperately want you to understand. This isn't about having a perfect marriage. It's about having a real one. Real marriages go through distinct seasons. Sometimes you're deeply connected and everything flows easily. Sometimes you're barely surviving and just trying to make it through each day. Sometimes you're thriving together. Sometimes you're barely holding on. But the marriages that actually last, the ones that are genuinely healthy and mutually fulfilling, are the ones where both people are willing to keep showing up, to keep trying even when it's hard, to keep truly seeing each other as complete human beings. The woman in this story doesn't need her husband to be absolutely perfect. She needs him to be genuinely present. She needs him to keep trying. She needs him to truly see her. And she needs to give herself full permission to be seen, to have legitimate needs, to take up space, to exist as a whole, complete person, not just as a service provider for everyone else. Because here's the beautiful truth that emerges when this shift happens. When she reclaims her full self, the entire family genuinely benefits. Children who have mothers with their own identity, their own interests, their own healthy boundaries, those children learn what healthy relationship patterns actually look like. They learn that love doesn't require complete self-erasures. They learn that everyone deserves to be whole. And husbands with wives who are fulfilled as complete individuals, those husbands get to be married to the actual woman they fell in love with, not an exhausted, empty shell of a person who's lost herself completely in service to everyone else. When both partners show up as whole, fulfilled individuals who actively choose to share their lives together, that's when marriage stops being a trap or a burden or a slow loss of self and becomes an actual partnership that makes both people genuinely better. Every morning, she wakes up before the sun fully rises. The house is quiet, and she moves silently through the rooms, preparing breakfast, laying out clothes, making sure everything is perfect for her family. She does all of this even when her body aches, when her mind is exhausted, and when she didn't get nearly enough sleep the night before. She smiles at her children, brushes away yesterday's frustrations, and forgives things that were never even apologized for. She carries the enormous weight of her household, her relationships, all her commitments, and sometimes even the dreams she once had for herself. There's a profound reason she continues doing this, even when it's completely exhausting. She's strong, she's disciplined, She's deeply caring, and yet, somewhere deep down, there's a persistent whisper asking, who am I really? Am I living for myself, or am I just living for everyone else? This experience is not uncommon at all. Millions of women share this exact reality, quietly, without complaint, without anyone truly noticing. And the honest truth is, most of them never even admit it fully to themselves. Marriage doesn't require perfection. It doesn't need flawless communication every single day or endless grand gestures. It needs genuine presence. It needs real awareness. It needs the courage to pause, to truly listen, and to genuinely see each other as complete human beings. When we finally recognize these truths, we can stop chasing an impossible illusion of perfection and start embracing the messy reality of real connection. And that is exactly where love truly thrives and grows. Now, before we end, I want you to do something meaningful. Take a moment. Close your eyes if you need to. Think about one moment of love from your life. It doesn't have to be big or dramatic. Maybe it was a hug that came exactly when you needed it most. Maybe it was a kind word someone said when you felt completely invisible. Maybe it was a shared laugh with your partner over something silly. Maybe it was just a quiet moment where you felt truly seen. Share one moment of love from your life in the comments, so other women know they're not alone. Because here's what happens when we share our stories. We realize we're all carrying similar weights. We're all feeling similar things, and suddenly, the isolation breaks. The loneliness cracks open just a little bit. Your story, your one small moment, might be exactly what another woman needs to read today. It might remind her that she's not crazy for feeling this way. She's not ungrateful. She's not weak. She's not alone. Tag a woman who needs to hear this today. Your friend who's been struggling. Your sister who's been exhausted. Your mother who gave everything. Share this with your husband so he finally understands what you've been trying to tell him for years. Not to blame him, not to start a fight, but to open his eyes to what's really happening. Because awareness is always the first step to change. And sometimes, one video can shift everything. Every morning, she wakes up before everyone, fixes breakfast, smiles when she's tired, and forgives even when no one apologizes. Remember this truth. Being everything for everyone might feel noble, but don't forget to be something real for yourself. Marriage doesn't measure love by perfection. It measures love by presence, by awareness, and by small moments that make someone feel truly seen and valued. This is the psychology nobody talks about openly, and now you know it.